the most important factor that affected our this year's panel's topic was the situation in Ukraine. So people love helping each other and like helping each other, and there has been a lot of sensitivity for the situation in Ukraine right now, and we wanted to gather in this panel to maybe share which is the religion's perspective on helping, sharing, and solidarity. And we have 5 panelists, and I want to thank once again each of them for participating today in this panel. And now there is their turn to shortly introduce themselves, and then we're going to start with the panel. Annie, if you can shortly introduce yourself for us, for our participants.
So thank you for inviting me to this panel. And this is the second time that I have the opportunity to be part of your activities. And I'm very honored. Thank you. So my Tibetan name is Ani Sherab, and the original Finnish name, which I officially use, is Pirkko Siltaloppi. I received my Tibetan Buddhist vows, nun's vows, in 1989 while I was in four-year retreat. That is a traditional way of practicing Buddhism in our lineage. That happened in Scotland, and I was there at that time when a request came from Finland, and so I was asked to teach Buddhism here. At that time, I was studying in my monastery, Kaji Sami in Scotland. So today I lead Kaji Sami Finland, which is affiliated with other Buddhist centers internationally. I have co-worked in introducing Rokpa therapy in Finland. That is one of branches we have. And then in years past, I also took responsibility of humanitarian activities, which is one of the branches called Rokpa International. My main teacher, the late Agong Tulku Rinpoche, was a great Tibetan refugee himself. And humanitarian issues were near to his heart. His example of compassion in action has been very inspiring to me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for introducing yourself. And maybe now we can go on with Joe, if you are able to quickly introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Joe Pacikowski. I'm American originally. I've been in Finland though for 43 years. So I've been here most of my life. I'm a member of the Baha'i community, and I'm a graphic designer. I'm recently retired, but I continue to work doing volunteer work. I work with a settlement group in Kuopio called Kompassi, which helps immigrants settle into Finland and to find work and education. I also work with a lot of international organizations like the Virtues Project and Transformative Leadership for Youth. I've been a Baha'i since was 17. The Baha'i faith doesn't have a clergy, but I've served on many administrative committees and groups, and has also been a teacher and lecturer. And I'm really happy to be here. It's the first time I've participated in any of the Sky events, and I really think what I've learned about the organization is very impressive, and I'm really happy to meet everybody today.
Yeah, thank you. We are really happy to have you today too. And thank you for introducing yourself. Maybe we can go on with Ms. Rahma, if you are available.
Good afternoon and greetings, everybody. I greet you with the greetings of peace. My name is Rahma Hershey, originally from Kenya, moved here about a year and a half, so I'd still consider myself very new to Finland. My background is law. I'm a lawyer by profession, who had an interesting journey of studying my tradition, Islam, from an early age. As I studied Arabic and Islamic law, trying to find my own journey and understanding how do I build and support those in my community, and also working within other faith-based communities, and also just working on social activist work. I am currently in Finland for family reasons, but I'm also a student at the University of Eastern Finland pursuing my doctorate in law. And I'm just happy to have found an organization that is trying to build community and trying to work across faiths, languages, backgrounds. And I think I'm just honored to be part of all this afternoon. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We are honored to have you part of this panel too. And I guess we have Miss Kati also here. And if you can.
Yes. Okay. So I can be the next one. So hello everybody. My name is Kati Eloranta, and I work as a pastor in Finland's Evangelical Lutheran Church. And to be more precisely, I work in Tampere Lutheran parishes. And the unit where I work is, it's a little bit difficult to, I found it difficult to find the right words in English, but diaconia and social responsibility is this unit where I work. And what this means is that, this unit gives both, visible or material help as well as mental or spiritual help. And my specialty as pastor is that it's actually multicultural and ecumenical work. So part of my work is to work with people who come here from different cultures, but what is common is that they are Christians. And then again, I also work with refugees who come to Tampere. Mm-hmm. This shortly is me. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. And I guess Mr. Gopal was also meant to be part, but I don't know if he made it, and is he here now? Let me just check. No, he is not. Maybe he joins us later. But let's now start with our presentation. And would anyone want to start first, or shall I just propose someone to start? We can start with the same order that I called you for your short presentation. So maybe we can start with Anni. She will share with us her perspective of the spirit of sharing, helping, and solidarity in her religion, and then we are going to one by one listen to your presentations. And at the end of their presentations, if there are any questions from the audience, I'm going to address you the questions. And this is going to be shortly the today's discussion. So Anni, are you available to start sharing your presentation?
Yes, I can start.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. In Buddhism, there are different ways to practice the religion according to different inclinations people have. Some Buddhists may spend this lifetime mainly in seclusion, purifying their mind, meditating and praying, while some are out in the world and helping others. We believe in reincarnation, so one life spent meditating may be preparation for the next, more active life. Moreover, we trust that prayers, good wishes, and thoughts also have an impact to the outer world. What is important in all Buddhist Dharma practice is feeling empathy with others and the motivation to help. Mahayana Buddhists especially develop a wish to help all beings to reach the same realization that the Buddha reached is called enlightenment. It is our belief that all beings have potential to become good if they choose so. There are many paths, and one does not necessarily need to be Buddhist to reach enlightenment. The tendency to emphasize our differences and to create increasingly solid divisions based on race, class, or other limiting categories can work against empathy. This limits the range within which we apply our compassion, as we mentally shut down our connection to certain others who do not fall within our preferred group. To define the words, empathy means intuitive understanding of how another person feels. Compassion is felt first as aspiration to help, and later it develops into action when one is actually involving in doing something to alleviate others' suffering. For a good result, wisdom is needed. Therefore, study, contemplation, and meditation are done first when possible. Buddhist training proceeds by first strengthening the existing basis of empathy and compassion that we already have, and then extending it outward, aiming to become intense and inclusive. Since this is a process of mental training that builds on whatever basis one already has, it is well suited for starting from where we are now, with our empathy less than fully developed. Actually, until the moment when we have an unbearable, unconditional response to the suffering of all beings without exception, our compassion has not yet reached the limits of how far it can grow. Mahayana Buddhists promise to not achieve enlightenment themselves before all others reach it. It is called Bodhisattva vow, and it is taken in a special ceremony. The promise is given through ritual for it to have karmic effect. Usually, the Bodhisattva vow is given by a Lama, but it can also be taken by oneself in front of a representation of Buddha, a picture, Buddha statue, or stupa, which represents the Buddha mind. Believing in reincarnation, it is possible to think that every single being has sometimes been someone close to us, for example, our parent. Motherly love is traditionally held to be an example of pure, unselfish love. Thus, we call all beings as mother-sentient beings and aspire to remember their kindness. It is the mother who is mainly responsible for our physical body cells, and she often is the main caretaker of her baby. However, if mother figure is not suitable for some reason, in that case, one can think of any being who has been kind and caring for them. Then use that as an example for love. When thinking how it feels if we see our mother or another close and dear person ever experiencing any suffering, we develop compassion, an urgent need to bring relief to them. So we practice the feeling of compassion first with those near to us and eventually extend compassion to others, not excluding anyone, not even our enemies. It's important to wish happiness to all and that everyone would be free from suffering. That prevents developing feelings of anger and hatred. Acting from anger is something that is not helpful. It brings suffering first to others and later to oneself. We practice so-called transcendental perfections in order to accomplish what we wish for. They are called paramitas in Sanskrit. Among the 6 paramitas are different acts of generosity, morality, patience, and diligence, as well as meditation and deepening wisdom.
Thank you, Anni. Thank you very much for sharing. And Yeah, there is a famous saying, as you were talking, and I was carefully listening. There is a famous saying that says that that the person tends to be enemy in a way to something that that he or she doesn't know. And then I think that this kind of discussion and finding things that we have in common makes us more empathetic to each other, and help us build that bridge between different kind of religions or different kind of thinkings. So it was a pleasure listening to your presentation.
I think that's very true. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And now, if we can go on with Joe's presentation. I'm trying to keep the order that we used for our presentation. So, Joe, would you be able to share?
Yes. The Baha'i Faith believes primarily in the oneness of God, the oneness of mankind, and the oneness of religion. And I think during this present Ukrainian crisis, Baha'is in Finland and around the world have been responding on a grassroots level in their areas, in their communities. I know in the community I live in, one of the Baha'is who is Russian speaking has been volunteering almost daily with the Orthodox Church here, which is taking responsibility for the integration of the refugees in just a practical way of being an interpreter, teaching them Finnish, and also helping them get settled in apartments, what they need. We've been helping collect clothes and pots and pans and plates and all the various things people need to get settled. And that's been quite a challenge. And it's just the beginning. I think, though, from a Baha'i perspective, as important as it is to alleviate the current sufferings, we have to recognize that this crisis is just one in a series of crises that has been going on for the last century. And it's not enough to just treat the symptoms of this crisis unless we can identify the root cause and source of this world unrest. An essential aspect to alleviating the human suffering going on now is to really determine why is the world facing these crises. I think we have to recognize that the current mindset and framework and frameworks of action that we're using to address the current problems, we have to ask ourselves, are they up to date or are they obsolete? Are we responding to the crisis in outmoded methods of ideas? By this, I mean that traditionally we've been nation states. We've been independent people, and we're responding to crises in these areas when we're facing global challenges. And so we have to really think, why are these global challenges taking place? What is causing these? I think one of the fundamental reasons mankind is having these problems is the nations of the world have yet to readjust their economic and political institutions to a global reality. We cannot imagine that we will solve our crises, that we will attain unity and prosperity after we solve the current problems of mankind. The reality is until we achieve unity of mankind, we will not have the confidence, the collective resources, or the courage to face these challenges. And achieving this unity of mankind is something we have to just find a way to re-examine our identities. We, whether we recognize it or not, are one race. There's only one human race. And since the Portuguese explorers started to sail down the coast of Africa, the world has gradually started to unite economically, culturally, so that today people are traveling all the time. The internet has connected people around the world. It's not wrong to be patriotic and to love your country, but you have to embrace all of mankind. And we have to re-examine our identity in terms of globally. And I think we have to also examine the fact that about 100 years ago, a materialistic interpretation of reality totally dominated the world. And although traditional religions have continued to exist, they've no longer been effective in collective decision-making. And these materialistic ideas, basically 100 years ago, they sounded like they were a good idea, that science could solve all mankind's problems, that human governance and experimentation could enable the world to feed all the people, to provide health care, to provide prosperity and well-being. Unfortunately, 100 years later, we see that this economic and consumer economy, instead of serving mankind, has turned out to exploit the masses as a resource. So we've come to the totally opposite direction we've intended. So the faith communities over this period of time have been marginalized. They've not been considered relevant to the modern needs of humanity. And we have to ask ourselves, why did this occur? And how can we now, as faith communities, respond to the real needs of mankind today? Because the materialistic worldview that sees people as competitive and sees them as by promoting their self-interest, they'll participate in economic development, but you cannot create generosity, love, and sacrifice based on self-interest. It's just a contradiction. Religion throughout history has been the one sole means of providing a moral framework in which civilizations have developed. Now, although all the religions appear to have a diversity of rituals and customs and doctrine, the fact is that they share something more in common than they have in differences. And that is that they've always been the source of providing social cohesion, moral education, and they all started out historically as being founded by an amazing figure who, without education, without riches, without social influence, provided the wisdom, the teachings in which gradually civilizations were created. And all the world's religions have proven to be the most effective means of human development over the centuries. And it would be highly unlikely that they could have done that if they were not all divinely inspired. There is only one God. We are all children of one God, We must all see each other as being brothers and sisters. We must, and when we begin to do that, national self-interest will no longer be the predominating rule of human society. And that's what is the, why is there a war in Ukraine today? What is the mindset that's causing that? This is what we have to really address if we're going to alleviate the long-term suffering. Otherwise, we will stagger from crisis to crisis. This is a fact. So over the last 20 years, there's been a flourishing of movements because people have not been satisfied with merely living to sustain their physical existence, that they realize that physical reality isn't the ultimate reality. They're missing and they're longing for a spiritual solution, a spiritual identity. They're moving, unfortunately, away from their traditional religions, looking into self-help groups, self-help movements, mindfulness, and although these things can provide some peace of mind, the relationship of the individual to society is reciprocal. And unless we address the social and our collective problems, in addition to our individual problems, we'll be very limited in the effectiveness that we'll be able to provide. The Baha'i community is active in releasing what we would call the society building power of religion. This means we have to think about how is religion able to transform the lives of not only the individuals, but our collective societies. Because justice is the biggest, most powerful force within human society to enact positive change. So through Baha'is daily practice, prayer and meditation on the word of God, they try to strive towards high ethics and morality, honesty. All Baha'is encouraged to work in a spirit of worship, that your daily work is a service to humanity. Baha'is are engaged in a series of promoting study circles in which people, families in all communities from the grassroots level can begin to look at what is the purpose of life? How can they find a path of service to humanity? We're also engaged in contributing to discourses on all levels of society. The Baha'is believe in universal education, the equality of men and women, independent investigation of truth, harmony of science and religion, and I'm probably going to repeat myself, but unless these principles are enacted, mankind will be handicapped in its development. I hope I've given a good idea of the direction and concepts the Baha'i community has in seeing and facing the challenges facing mankind today. And we are happy and willing to collaborate and cooperate with anyone also interested in creating a united, harmonious world, because the purpose of religion in the Baha'i view is to carry, for the individuals to love God, to serve humanity, and to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joe. It was a very nice presentation and retrospective, because I think that history from time to time repeats itself for the reasons you just mentioned. Now, before I will be having a question, in fact, for you, but before that, Gopal is here with us. So welcome, Gopal. If you can quickly introduce yourself for our participants, for our listeners. Gopal was our fifth panelist. So he made it, and he's now here.
Thank you so much. My name is Gopal Krishna Das. I'm a practitioner of what is called Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga. It's ancient tradition from the India, around 5,000 years old, with our scriptures. And here in the West, tradition is known from 1965. And in Finland, I started in 2012 myself, 10 years ago. And all these years, I've been living as a monk student at our Krishna temple. Actually, here is I'm just in courtyard.
Okay.
So I've been traveling around Europe and in the world, and also mostly I've been here in Finland and surrounding countries. And most of the time in my abroad in Finland, I've been in India, in going deep into the teachings of Bhakti tradition, and I give lectures on philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and I'm in charge of ashram, means of our small monastery here. And yeah. I also participate in this interfaith dialogues like that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for introducing yourself. And
your mic is off, Ina.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ilham. And now, before going on to our next panelist, I would like to ask a question to Joe, since I was curious to know that what is the reward or the motivation for helping out people in your religion?
A human being, the purpose of life is to love and serve God, to serve humanity. The concept of like heaven and hell we see as symbolic, that the purpose of doing good deeds is to grow closer to God, to reflect the attributes of God, to reflect the nearness to God and service to humanity is the reward. There isn't a reward for being good. Being good is the reward. And being hell is being removed from God, to be far from God, to turn away from God. And the motivation is just to love God and to love mankind. That's the purpose of life. So by fulfilling your purpose, you're developing. That's just so simple.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. In fact, while you were explaining, I remember I have read somewhere that people carry a seed of heaven or hell inside of them, and then somehow during their lifetime they decide which seed to plant and grow. So yeah, being close to God and being in a way your deeds being accepted by Him and being praised by Him is a great motivation. So thank you very much for sharing your perspective on this question. And now it's time to go on with our next panelist. So Ms. Rahma, it's your turn to share your perspective about the spirit of sharing and solidarity in Islam.
Thank you, Ina. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, Muslims draw their way of life, and Islam is considered a way of life, from the revelation of the Quran, the Holy Quran, and the traditions of the Blessed Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And that is what I'm going to use today to answer the questions that you put forward, to help share from the Islamic perspective how important it is to stretch our hands out in solidarity and work towards unity, especially with those who need us most, like in the case of our brothers and sisters in the Ukrainian refugees. In chapter 7 of the Holy Quran, verse 7, God says, believe in Allah and his messenger, here being the Prophet Muhammad, and spend out of that in which he has made you successive inheritors. For those who have believed among you and spent, there will be a great reward. So here there's an understanding that it is critical and important to give out of what has been given to you, an understanding that the wealth, what you own, is not yours, but has actually been gifted to you. And in that gift, your responsibility is to share of it. And then the second verse is again, chapter 57, verse 18. Indeed, the men who practice charity and the women who practice charity, they who have loaned Allah a goodly loan, it will be multiplied for them and they will have a noble reward. Here we understand that charity is practiced across both genders. Giving is important across both genders. And it is understood that what you give is actually considered to be a goodly loan. So God is saying, give me that goodly loan so that I may reward you and multiply for you from what you have given. And that multiplication is actually a noble reward. So an understanding that giving, charity is not just critical, it's encouraged, and the reward is both here and in the afterlife. Next, I turn to the sayings of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, where he says, Irhami man fil ard yarhamuka man fis sama. Have mercy on the ones in the earth, and the one in the heavens will have mercy on you. My name Rahma means mercy and compassion. And here we understand that as we seek to get mercy, we must extend mercy. So giving is not restricted only materially. It is holistically, it's across the board. Whatever capacity we are able to give, share, build in Islam, it is not only encouraged, it is stressed upon. And then the second tradition from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he says, he who finds relief for a hard-pressed person, Allah will make things easy for him in the day of resurrection. So once again, understanding that if you give our fellow human being kindness, compassion, respite, relief, then your reward is with your creator and your maker. And finally, I'd like to share a quick story. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was not only a refugee, he was a person who encouraged the building of community. When the first Muslims were being persecuted in Mecca, where did they turn to? They went across continents to Ethiopia, to Habash, to seek refuge under the king Najash. So even within the history of Islam, the Sirah, we understand that persecution has been faced, but we have examples in our history where people have worked across all communities to benefit, build, and serve the one true God for the purposes of building a better and better world. And thank you, Ina. I hope I didn't go over time.
No, it was very, very useful and a very good presentation. And if you don't mind, I would like to ask a question. Is there an order of priority in helping out people in Islam? So is there any verses or prophetic teachings about an order of priority? So if we think of many people who are in need of help, which one would Islam promote or teach you to help first of all?
Right. No, thank you for that question. Islam, in the Quran, there's a very powerful verse that says, if you save a life, it's as if you have saved humanity. From this verse, we understand that there is no priority, and what we need to do is save that particular human life, right? And so if we're talking about helping, about extending support, compassion, kindness. Islam does not restrict what that support, kindness, and compassion is, to which level and to which category. It's across the board. Of course, there are aspects where within the legal tradition of Islam, there is a particular tax that is given, which then falls very specifically across certain categories. But even if you look at these certain categories, most of our humanitarian conversations would fall within those categories. So I hope I've answered your question, Ina.
Yeah. You answered. Thank you so much. So thank you for your presentation. It was quite good to hear the Islamic perspective of this topic. And now we are ready to go on with, I'm so sorry. We are ready to go on with Ms. Kati and her perspective to the topic.
Okay. So I am also going to answer quite strictly to your questions, so if that's okay. I think that charity work or helping is the basis of Christian church. Helping in Christianity is based on on Jesus's great commandment, and it goes like this: love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. So from the very beginning of Christianity or Christian history, Christian people have always been asked to love, not just with words, but with actions as well. And the same idea of helping is found from the Old Testament as well. So the Bible is divided to Old and New Testament. And Old Testament was written in the time before Jesus. But there is the same idea was with Jews as well. The idea of being on their side who are poor or mistreated or persecuted somehow, because the people of Israel had experienced the same as well when they were foreigners in Egypt. And but especially example of Jesus and his teachings has guided Christian church from the very beginning. So what Jesus did was that he healed and he helped poor, and he always was on their side who were somehow rejected, And Christian church is called to do the same. And this side has always been a part of Christian church, to somehow be the voice of those who are somehow mistreated or are minorities, be the voice of those and help them as well. And the question about the reward of helping is actually very, very good question. And I think that the reward is just simply good spirit you get when you help. And it's the same idea that Joe actually spoke, that we have no such rewards that, well, if you now help people, you will get the ticket to heaven. No, it doesn't go like this. But I think that when you believe in God, your faith actually brings forth good deeds. When you receive love, it is your duty to love others as well. And this is just how it is in Christianity. And but then if I still have time, I would like to somehow tell a little bit more that what helping actually in practice is, especially here in Tampere. What does or what do Tampere parishes do here? Well, as I told already when I introduced myself, our help is both material and then as well mental or spiritual help. And material help is mostly food here in Tampere. As we know, COVID has influenced on people's life very deeply, and there are more and more people who are dependent on extra help. We have a unit called Food Bank here in Tampere. And this unit co-works with local shops and shopping centers. And the system goes like this, that shops donate lost food to Ruokapankki, and then food bank, sorry. And then food bank gives this food to those who are in need. And the only criteria for this help is that you are sort of a customer of a food bank. And then you will receive food bags, or you can go actually to food bank's shop where you can take whatever you need. And how does this work then? Well, you don't have to be a member of Lutheran Church, or you don't have to be a Christian. You do not ask these sort of questions, not at all. But what do we ask is that, well, you need to be a person who have low income in order to get this sort of help. And if you can somehow point that you really need extra help, then of course you will get it. And there are many kinds of workers in Lutheran Church, and we have also deacons, and they will give, well, how it normally goes is that a person, if he or she needs extra help and food, he calls to the deacon worker, and they have a little chat, and then deacon worker gives him a permission, sort of a ticket, permission ticket, that now you can have that food from a food bank. And then of course our help is also that we sometimes help people to, well, for instance, pay bills they cannot pay, but we do not give cash, you know. It doesn't work like this, our help, but we will always somehow try to help people. And then if a person needs furniture and this is for a new flat, we can help with that as well. So and material help is mainly given by deacon workers, but then spiritual or mental help is given by other workers as well. So what we have family counselings for families or couples who have relationship difficulties. And then we have just begun here in Tampere a service called walk-in therapy. And this means that if you need to chat with somebody, if you have sort of mental problems, you can come to us and there was some extra noise and then we can chat a little bit, and we can give time as well. We have this thing called Little Help. We have workers who work with children, and they can look after children for a while if parents need some time for their own and things like that. And these services are free. And then of course we raise money to help well, in the world, you know, if there are some sort of catastrophe, if some countries, well, like for instance, Ukraine are in the middle of catastrophe, then we will raise money, and we have organizations inside our church who can deliver this help.
Yeah, in fact, this was going to be my question. In fact,
yes.
There are currently 20,000 Ukrainian refugees in Finland, and this number is expected to reach 80,000. So, have you thought of some extra kind of organization in order to support these refugees coming from a war zone?
Yes, actually, and we actually go work pretty closely to Tampere city in this matter, and what we can offer to city is that because we have big camping centers, we can offer them Ukrainian refugees permanent, shelter. This is one thing we can do. Then we have we have been visiting now in refugee centers, and we have been giving their mental health. And then what we all the time do is that we raise the money. Yeah. And we have just hired a Ukrainian speaking worker for a couple of months who can actually now help Ukrainian refugees if they have, well, any sort of questions they have on their mind.
Yeah. In fact, something that I really liked you just mentioned is the psychological and the emotional help that you are providing to refugees, because I think that it's crucial in such times that they feel that they are supported also psychologically, not only because all of us, all of you during your presentations reached out to some very important point, that humans are considered humans not only for their basic life needs like food and but also for their spiritual needs. So they of course need the psychological and the emotional support. And I'm so glad that you shared what you are actually doing within your community.
Yes, and they have many questions. Ukrainians who are now here in Tampere, they feel guilty that they are safe, and this sort of big issues. They have big issues on their mind.
Yeah, of course, because they have come from the middle of hell.
Yes.
So yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing, Kati. And now it's Gopal's turn to share his community's perspective on helping and solidarity. Gopal, are you now available?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm available. Can you see me? Is this working?
I guess you have some you have some sound issues. We were hearing at the beginning, but now I guess there is some connection issues going on. Can you hear us? Okay, let's wait a couple of minutes and maybe his connection will be back. Actually, as we are waiting. Yes, now we can hear you. Or no? I guess there should be some connection problems. So while we are waiting for Gopal, I would like to remind our listeners, our participants, that if they have any questions, to any of the panelist participants, they can make their question now, or maybe they can chat it in the box, and then I can address it. It was something that catched my interest, and I'd like to ask Ms. Rahma to open it up if she can. Is that she mentioned some kind of a tax and of a specific kind of monetary, if I understood it well, monetary help that Muslims give during the year. Can you open it up a little bit more, please? So because it's you are from a low background, so I guess you can just specify it a little bit more. Is there a certain amount of money, and is it a certain time of the year that this amount of money is given to people in need? How does that work?
Sure. Absolutely. So we have what is called the zakah, or the alms giving. And there is two kinds. There is the one that is right after Ramadan, as we are now in the month of Ramadan. You must, there's a portion of whatever is the normal food that you eat in the community. So whether it's rice, wheat, whatever it is, a portion of that is gifted to those who are not able or are poor or are struggling in this regard. Of course, in the modern world we live in, it is what is given is money instead. And this is very critical to be done before you go for the prayer, the Eid prayer. So again, the understanding is, whilst you're coming out of this blessed month, whilst you have been doing your charity and your fast, then you cannot in good conscience go out into the world to celebrate and have a good time. And there are those in our community who are not going to experience the same because of the circumstances that they find themselves in. So there's that. And then there is the one that is 2.5% of your wealth. So if you, for example, as a person make a certain income and you have savings in your income, so an entire year passes by and you have a certain amount still in your savings, then 2.5% of this is taken as a way to, it's called the direct Arabic translation of this, a linguistic meaning, is purifying your wealth. So what is it purifying your wealth from? Greed, from materialism, from grasping and holding on to the world. And it is seen that this zakah or this wealth tax is given from your wealth, which is not yours. It's given as a gift to you from your creator, as a way to take care of your fellow human beings. So as a way to build community. And a practical example where this has been done in our modern world in very relevant to the refugee crisis. UNHCR, which is the UN body that works within the refugee and the humanitarian and migrants and issues of that nature, have worked very closely with Muslim scholars to take this zakah and build what is called a zakah fund to help within the humanitarian crisis. And so there is structured charity in Islam, which is the two that I have given. And then there is the sadaqah, which is the giving of charity at any time and at every level, and can be as basic, and I say basic, but it's not by any stretch of the imagination, as basic as smiling to your fellow human being. So an understanding that your charity is not only material, but it is your entire self, and it's across all people, all communities, and what it does is it's charity. Again, in Islam, you're reminded time and time again, is not for you, is not for the other person. It is to benefit you, to work within your own desires, to work within your own material, maybe hold on the material world, because again, coming from a faith perspective, we understand that this world is transient, at least in the Islamic tradition and maybe other faiths, where this world is where you live your best life and you go to your forever abode, right? So again, understanding that charity is but a tool to purify yourself, purify your actions, and to better the world that we live in, and to gift. I don't even think gift is the right word, but to lift up out of human consciousness your fellow humankind. So I don't know if that's going in a. The problem with being trained in the work that I've done is we don't keep quiet. So please tell me to be quiet if
No, thank you very much. This in fact is very interesting, because when we think about charity and helping and solidarity, we think of usually an unstructured way of giving. And what I mean with unstructured is that everyone that is in need, we try to reach them out and help them somehow. But then it's very interesting that in Islam there is this structured way of charity, which is very interesting, and I really like the idea of getting the 2.5% fund and using it for the people who are really in need. And one of these categories is for sure now the Ukrainian refugees. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing. And now I guess Gopal now has its connection back. Yeah, good. So if you can now go on, Gopal, with your perspective of helping, sharing, and solidarity in your religion and in your practices.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Try to answer these questions which have been presented. In our scriptures, it is said, "Titikshava karuniga sukhridastarva dehinam ajata shattava sata sadava sadabhushana." It means as a spiritual practitioner or saintly person, his symptoms is that he's very tolerant, he's very merciful, and he's friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies, he's peaceful, he abides by the scriptures, and all his characters are sublime. It's the very basis of spiritual life that we are, especially in today's topics, that this compassion is very essential. It means if we really call ourselves spiritualists, we have compassion. It's just a principle of the spiritual life. And in our tradition, it's very essence of bhakti, which means selfless love, called bhakti yoga, or Krishna consciousness, consciousness of God. And God, he is it's also referred in Bhagavad Gita as he is Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwara, means he is a true benefactor and a friend of all the living entities. He's proprietor, actually, of all the planets and all the universes. So what we try to, first of all, our aim is to build a house where all the world can live in. But we know that it's very invisible part of the house. It's called foundation of the house. So this is like, which really, I was listening to Joy Pacikowski, which is a nice presentation, really reflecting on that we, like, in our Bhakti tradition, like, first what we try to, to able to help people, we have to have foundation. So the basic foundation for helping is understanding our true spiritual self. It's called Brahman. It's first realization of the Supreme. It means that we all living entities, we all spirit, like humans, animals, all the species of life. And especially in human beings, we don't make distinctions that one race is better than other and like that. So in the same way, all the living entities, regardless of their present position, it means external body, they're all meant to be helped and to be respected and cared and with love and devotion. That's the basic foundation of the spiritual life that we see. First of all, we build this foundation that we are all equal on a spiritual level. We are all have this eternal spirit inside of us, which is very essential that we try to teach all the world that we are all spirits. This is one. And second is that we understanding the God, which is localized in every heart of the living entities, means every living entity is a moving temple of God. So all of that should be respected. And realizing God in us and in all surrounding of us means that we are really living in harmony with the world. And it's really gives us understanding of safety and that actually the good or God, he is in control of everything. So what is the criteria of helping people? There's no such criteria, means that whoever is in need of help, he is to be helped. For householders, like monks, like as a monk student myself, we are expected to serve humanity with all our life, body, and words. It's our duty. But for householders, it's there's also one of the many duties what is there for those who have family and children. It's also that traditionally in India, they go out and they should call 3 times before they take a meal that is anybody hungry? And such a person should invite whoever comes to his house and feed him. And of course, that's the principle of it's called uninvited guests. Means in case of emergency, we treat such an invited guest as God, not in the sense that he's a God, but in the sense that you offer all the respect as you offer to the God. So whatever your guest is needed, or whatever person in need in emergency, as we see refugees now coming from Ukraine, is need are helped. Like in what we provide now worldwide, we are giving our facilities. We have temples and monasteries, we have farms, different centers around the world, around 1,000. So especially like in Hungary and Poland, our centers was all door open for all the refugees to come, especially farm communities was filled up with people who needed shelter. And here in Finland also we already accepted few refugees. Like in our temple right now, we have few refugees and we are making a program helping people who are approached us. And in Ukraine itself, our movement is very prominent, and the vote is there right now. Even inside the Ukraine, they are distributing free food and they're providing psychological help by giving classes and by sharing spiritual literature, and also providing musical prayers like chanting mantras. In Vedic tradition, basics that women, children, and elders, they should be always taken care of, always protected in any circumstances. So they're the first groups to be taken care of. And in the case of emergency, like whoever now comes, they should be helped. So as a spiritual organization, of course, our help is spiritual, prioritized. But whatever facilities we have, we try to, like here in Finland, we also have a farm, and we also offering that to help as a space people can come and can have the place to have a shelter. Yeah, what are the helping tools? Yeah, I think I mentioned some, and I just want to come back to the first point, that we try to build a house that all the world can live in. That's a problem of a modern society, that scientific spiritual education is very much missing in modern society. And we as a religious practitioners, we have a duty to be a perfect example of our tradition, to follow it as it is. And in this way, to really develop this compassion towards the living entities. And for that, we need tolerance. We need to have this quality to see in the long perspective, not our immediate needs, but to really help see back for the future. And ultimately to understand that it all belongs to God, this whole world. Is that what we call one country, another country is quite superficial, because it's all one world, it's all one house, it's all one planet, and it's all only one race, and we are all one big family. And God, as a father of all the living entities, humans and plants and animals, that he is we as the children of him, we should see all others as the sons of God, as good children of God. In this sense, we achieve real peace. And we can, by cooperation, in loving, devotion, humble mood, we can really help humanity like that. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, this kind of organizations really help to find out, and we again found out, I guess I did, and many of our listeners did found out that we have many things in common, and the things that we have in common are more important than what are our actual practices, and how do we practice the religion or the faith that we carry within ourselves. And one thing that I would really like to emphasize is that many of you mentioned the psychological and the spiritual and the emotional support, which I think is crucial nowadays, and not only with refugees, but with every person in need, because we can see and we can figure out the things that people need from the outside, like food or clothes or shelter, but we can hardly see what they need from the inside. So what kind of emotional and what kind of, let's say, spiritual support they need. And sometimes this spiritual and emotional support is much more important than the basic tools and the basic needs of life. So once again, thank you very much for sharing your perspective. It was quite a nice conversation. Now I would like to address our audience. If they have any question, they can unmute their microphones or just type their questions in the chat box. So then I can address the questions for you. And if they don't, then we can wrap up and finish our panel today. So, in every language, they can ask questions in every language, and we can translate and provide it for our panelists. So. And it can also be that maybe if you have questions for one another among the panelists, also you are very welcome to ask these questions if you have.
I don't have a question, but I would like to thank the other panelists. I've thoroughly enjoyed hearing their perspectives and learning about their views and their ideas. And so thank you very much.
Yeah, yes. Okay, I guess there is no question from the audience, because when it comes to such topics like sharing, helping, and solidarity, I think there is a common language which is understandable from everyone. And the main idea of the questions that, in fact, I addressed you in the email, in the invitation, was that we have a framework for our today's panel and discussion, because I know for sure that yes, there is no such criteria of who needs to be helped first. Oh yeah, okay. So Ilham has a question, I guess, because he raised his hand. So
thank you for giving this opportunity, and thank you for the panelists for the perfect presentation and talks. Listening to all of you, I was wondering about the fact that, yeah, the modern society, we think a lot about scientific achievements and the world around it, and no more spirituality is in need, or the modern system is built more on the materialistic basis from one side. And from another side, take an example of Finland. I have worked myself as a fundraiser in UNICEF for children some years ago. So I used to go door to doors, knocking people's doors and asking for their donation. I was quite surprised that in 90% of cases, like I would go to hundreds of houses every day. And in 90% of these cases, all households would be donating to somewhere, to Red Cross, to saving children, to different causes. And imagine like 2-3 directions they put their funds. But at the same time, so let's keep this from another side. How you see this? How you see this dynamic? The modern society being more and more secular, materialistic, scientific, but at the same time, given the example of course, I can't generalize, but in my example of knowing and exploring people, being very generous, being very peaceful and peace-minded. Now, when you talk about faith, many people bring the criticism of look at the religious societies. I mean, if we try to compare, of course, it's all relative in many aspects, but why we have seen this modern societies being materialistic, but at the same time being generous, being kind, and being peaceful, versus religious societies with all these teachings, traditions, being less tolerance, if I put the question right. So thanks.
Yes, who would like to? Yeah, Joe, please. Yeah.
I think we have to remember the value of the importance of both science and religion to society. In the Baha'i faith, we consider them like two wings of a bird, because religion without science can devolve into superstitious beliefs. And religion without science can become, like we have seen in some societies recently, that, for example, during World War II, Germany was the most advanced nation in the world, scientifically, medically, psychologically, but it didn't prevent them from becoming the most barbaric. And when this relationship between science and religion is out of balance, we will experience great horrors. And they are both necessary to human prosperity and well-being. And today, for example, the environmental problems we have today, well, any scientist will tell you there's no mystery about what we should do, but we don't have, because of our consumer economy, we don't have the moral and ethical courage to implement the changes needed to save our environment. This is why only science itself will not save mankind. Without spiritual, ethical, moral direction, without moral, ethical influence in changing the direction of development, we will not solve any problems. Science will solve nothing without religion.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else that wants to answer Ilham's question?
I'd like to maybe share a couple of things.
Yes, please.
I think, and thank you, Ilham, for asking the question. In Islam, the more we read the Quran and ponder over the words of our Creator, we find numerous places we are always told, don't you see? Don't you look around? For surely all this couldn't have been without His mercy. And then right after that, and surely a human being only understands but a little. So repeatedly, we have this understanding that whereas science has contributed, science is still limited. And if man remembers that it is limited and that we need to dig deeper to our faith and understanding, then this is where the balance comes, because we temper the sort of arrogance that science brings with it. And science has done many good things, but when we have moved towards a world where we believe that not only does science cure everything, it is truly going to be the world's solution for everything, we find ourselves in sort of the situations we are in now, where from a climate perspective, we have done so much damage to just as people who have been here for the last 100 or so years. So in Islam, we're constantly reminded that you are khulafa, you are God's vicegerents on this earth. God has given you understanding, but will you take that understanding? Will you use your understanding to be better? Will you use your understanding for community? Or will you take that understanding and believe that you know it all, right? So that's one aspect. And having the ability that religion does not only push us towards one aspect. We can be scientific, take of this world, be spiritual, and be kind and charitable. There shouldn't be a delineation of these actions, that they go together, because ultimately we are responsible to the most gracious, most merciful one, in Arabic known as Rahmat al-Alameen, So I don't know if that answers or contributes in any way.
Thank you, Rahma, for sharing.